his lunch tray, and she shrieked and jumped back into me, and I caught her elbow for one perfect second until Trevor swooped in between us and gently held her hands. "Relax, I got you." He flicked the moth away, and she smiled at him. "Wow, you're my hero." I crossed my arms and let him have this one. But soon, I was going to get rid of every moth in this school, so she'd never scream again, and she was going to see exactly who the real hero was. After the last bell rang, I ran to the science lab with my backpack wide open, and I shoved in 2 car headlights, the UV bulb from the reptile tank, and a battery pack. I peeked my head out of the doorway to make sure no one was there, and I ran to a corner of the courtyard where there weren't any security cameras, and I smiled because I knew this was all going to be worth it to see Chloe smile. I dragged a lunch table into the corner, clipped the battery pack to the headlights with alligator clips from the physics drawer, and taped both lights down, angled at the sky. By the time I finished, it was already dark outside, and the school was locked up, so I flipped the switch, and the light was so bright that the courtyard went white. The first moth arrived in under a minute, bumping the headlight in dumb circles, and I scooped it into my jar, grinning. Then came 5 more, then 20, until the air around the light was a storm of wings. They landed in my hair and crawled up my sleeves while I filled the jar, and the whole time I was grinning ear to ear because I knew Chloe was sure to call me her hero soon. I walked in the next morning with the jar filled with moths over my shoulder like Santa, but Chloe was at her locker stroking a moth on her open palm, Trevor leaning beside her. Trevor took me to the butterfly house last night, and it really helped me with my fear of moths. "Did you know moths are just night butterflies? This one's name is Pete. He's kinda cute, right?" Trevor nodded at the jar. "What's in the container, man?" I'd spent 9 hours catching everything she was scared of, and he'd spent 1 date making her love it. I carried it out to the courtyard and opened it. As 300 moths poured into the sky, I realized I was never a hero. I was just down bad. A moth landed. I placed the last box of brown hair dye into my shopping cart and continued walking, but when I turned around, I saw a woman in her mid-40s reaching into my cart and trying to take the hair dye. I moved her hand and told her, "This box is for my daughter with cancer. She wants to dye her hair her favorite color one last time before chemo." But the woman scoffed, "I have a party next month and all my friends have brown hair, so I need it more," and kept trying to take it. I called over the manager, and after the woman proudly declared her party was more important than my daughter's cancer, he kicked her out and told her she was banned. I came home with the dye and dyed my daughter's hair, but then a month later, I got a letter in the mail. The woman was suing me over the hair dye. I showed up to court with my daughter, and the woman was already sitting there, frowning like she was the victim. She stood up and told the judge I had done irreparable emotional damage to her, and pulled out photos of her from the party, showing her with blonde hair while all her friends had brown hair. She cried, "My friends laughed at me all night, Your Honor. They don't understand how hard it's been for me." The judge looked over at my daughter with her already thinning brown hair and immediately ruled in our favor. Then he looked at the woman and also ordered her to cut her hair short, because right now it's getting in her eyes and stopping her from seeing the actually important things in life. Her jaw dropped and the clippers came out. I placed the A man walked in with his son while I was working the counter at the movie theater, and the kid instantly started pointing at everything behind the glass. "Daddy, it's my birthday. I want the big popcorn, the chicken nuggets combo, and 2 drinks so we don't have to share." The dad smiled and ordered everything, but when I said $37, his smile instantly faded. He opened his wallet and I saw him count. He only had 20. He quietly muttered, "I'm a failure," under his breath, then started putting things back. The large popcorn became a small. The 2 drinks became 1. The kid's combo was gone completely. His son watched each item get taken off, and his little face fell, but he didn't say a word because he clearly understood. The dad paid the 20, and I watched them walk in with their 1 small popcorn and 1 drink. I looked down at the kid's combo on my counter, then pulled $17 out of my wallet and put it in the register. I grabbed the kid's combo, the large popcorn, and the second drink, and walked into the theater. I found them right as the movie was starting, and the dad was pouring popcorn into his son's hands, so the kid would get more. I set everything on their armrest. "This one's on the house, for the birthday boy." The dad looked up at me, and his eyes filled with tears. He didn't say a word, but I knew that's because if he spoke, he'd start crying immediately. His son screamed, "Daddy, look, chicken nuggets!" I smiled and walked back, but when I walked out, my manager stopped me. "Why did you do that?" I replied, "Because it was only $17 and made the kid's birthday special." He counted the money in the register. "Fine, but that's $17 that could have gone in your wallet. He probably pretended to be broke just so you'd do that." I just shrugged, but after the movie, the dad quickly slid me a folded napkin while walking out. I opened it, and it said, "I lost my job last month. My son's mom left. This is the first time I've taken him anywhere since. Thank you for making it feel like things might be okay. Michael." I put the napkin in my wallet where the $17 was and smiled, because sometimes even a little help can go further than you could ever imagine. A man I was at a boxing tournament and landed one final punch, waiting to win the title belt I'd wanted my whole life. The ref shouted, "We have a new champion," and raised my glove, but before I could grab the belt, Jason, the champ who'd won 5 years straight, lunged at it. "That should be mine." I pushed it away from him, and he smiled. A real champ doesn't get handed the belt, he takes it. I didn't know what he meant until he dropped to the canvas, clutched his lower back and screamed, "He injured me! I can't feel my legs!" The whole arena gasped as the ref rushed over. Jason let out a big sob. "Winning is how I feed my family, and now I'll never fight again." I wasn't sure if he was lying, but then he slapped at his own legs, screaming he couldn't feel a thing. So the ref waved frantically. "Get a medic out here now!" The crowd booed me for paralyzing a legend. Jason reached out a shaking hand. "Please, just let me have this win. That belt is the only way I can provide for my kids." The ref knelt beside him, then looked up at me. "A real champion would give it to him. Are you really going to take everything from a man who can't walk?" Everyone turned to me, waiting, and I knew if I said no, I'd be the cruelest sore loser alive. So with my heart pounding, I placed the belt in Jason's hands. The second it touched his palms, his tears stopped, and a grin spread across his face as he raised it high to a roaring crowd. But giving him that belt was the best thing I could have done, because right then, the medic sprinted into the ring. Jason's grin vanished. "Wait, I'm okay now. I don't need a doctor. Just let me celebrate." But the medic knelt and pulled out a reflex hammer. "If you can't feel your legs, we have to check. Hold still." The arena went silent as he tapped Jason's knee and his leg kicked straight into the air. The medic looked up. "He's not paralyzed. His leg's fine." The crowd started booing, but Jason grabbed the belt and scrambled up to run, but his foot caught the rope and he slammed onto his back with a loud crack. He screamed that he couldn't move, but my big brother Eli and I played Jinx. My big brother Eli and I played Jinx every day, and he'd managed to convince me that getting jinxed meant I actually lost the ability to use my voice. I'd put my hands together for him to unjinx me so I could speak again, but he'd just laugh and walk away, leaving me in silence for hours. But then one day Eli jinxed me and ran upstairs, and that's when I heard something behind me. An intruder was climbing in through our window. He dropped onto our carpet, and my whole body froze with fear. I wanted to yell for Dad, but my lips stayed shut because I knew the jinx wouldn't let me speak. The man put Dad's watch in his bag, then saw me sitting frozen. He raised a finger to his lips, then grinned. "Oh, you're mute. That makes this even easier." He turned and took Dad's ID from his wallet for ransom. My lips trembled as I tried to work up the courage to scream despite the jinx, but my vocal cords locked up when I opened my mouth. That's when Eli's voice came down the stairs. "You still frozen down there, lil bro?" He was laughing, knowing I couldn't say yes. I was terrified, but the man's eyes instantly went to the stairs. He smiled. "So that kid there can speak? Let me go say hi to him." He started heading up towards Eli and my dad. I knew I had to try, so I took a deep breath and opened my mouth, but no sound came out. I tried again, but the man just gripped the railing and kept walking, so I clenched my fists as my face turned red. "Dad, there's a robber in the house!" Instantly, feet slammed above me, and Dad ran to the staircase holding his pistol. The man instantly dropped his bag and ran down, flying past me and out the window. Dad ran down with Eli behind him, while I sat there trembling. I instantly grabbed Eli's arm, my voice shaking. I beat it, "Eli." The man was in our house for a few minutes, but I was jinxed and couldn't scream for help. But then I tried really hard and it worked. I broke the jinx. Eli's mouth instantly opened. He stared at me with these wide, shocked eyes, then pulled me into his chest. "Yes, little brother, you beat it. I'm so proud of you." He let me have my moment. I was walking toward my favorite spot out on the city pier when I heard the breaking boards beneath my feet. Then, with a sound like a volcanic eruption, the entire left side of the pier collapsed at an angle, sending everyone stumbling, including me. Great, I thought. First I get fired and now this. What else could go wrong today? I guess I spoke too soon. While everyone else on the pier was able to maintain their footing, I went right over the guardrail and onto the beach 30 feet below. As I fell, I just prayed the sand was soft enough that I'd survive. When I opened my eyes, I assumed I was dead. I was still on the beach, but standing over me was the ghost of my father, who died more than 3 years ago. I stood up and looked myself over. I was still flesh and blood, still very much alive. I suppose I had to be hallucinating my dad's ghost. It made sense. I was fired from the engineering firm that he helped build from the ground up, so of course I felt like a failure. Then I heard another crack and the entire pier came down a few more inches, followed by a new round of panicked screams from above. The ghost pointed to the problem, a failing support beam. If a total collapse happened, happened, people could die. Then he pointed at the driftwood lying around the beach. When I was a kid, me and my dad would collect driftwood to build castles. Little did I know, these were my first lessons in how to build things, so that eventually I could take over the family business. Suddenly, my engineer brain took over, and everything made sense. I knew what had to happen. I collected as many logs as I could find along the beach and lined them up along the broken beam. Then I took off my belt and cinched it around the group of logs. I pulled the strap on that belt as hard as my muscles would physically allow, and suddenly the beam snapped back into place. The pier was once again level, and the people on it were safe. I looked back at the ghost of my father. He simply put his hand over his heart and then dissolved into the darkness. When I got back to the pier, I was hailed as a hero. I went on to start my own engineering firm and have been #1 in town ever since. Me and my younger brother Sam used to play Operation for hours. We'd play it when Mom told us to do homework and play it in our bedroom at night. And if we ever messed up and clipped the edge, the board buzzed loudly, and Mom would storm in and catch us. Our hands had to become precise and steady just so we could play. Our family were on a road trip when the truck clipped us. Our car tumbled through the air and we rolled, landing on our side. Me and my mom thankfully only had minor cuts. But when we got out, Sam was on the road not moving. He'd fallen out while the car was rolling, and his face, neck, and arms were all embedded with shards of glass. He was crying and screaming in pain, and every breath he took drove the shards deeper into his skin. I realized some were dangerously close to his arteries. The ambulance was 30 minutes away because we were out in the desert, and I knew we needed to get the glass out of him, ASAP. I opened the first aid kit from the trunk and pulled out tweezers, walking over to Sam with shaking legs but steady hands. This is just like Operation, I told myself. I knelt down, and Sam's eyes were wide and terrified, but he nodded bravely. I placed the tweezers to a shard of glass at his shoulder, but that's when Mom yanked the tweezers from me. "Stop it! You're not a doctor!" The force lodged the shard deeper, and Sam screamed in pain. "Look what you did," she said. "We're waiting for a doctor." But that's when Sam spoke through his tears. "Please, Mom, let him do it. It's just like Operation. We play it all the time, and you never catch us. Please trust him." Mom's face softened. I could tell she was terrified, but she gave me the tweezers and closed her eyes. Sam nodded, and I slowly pulled a shard from his shoulder, then one from his wrist. I was sweating, and my heart pounded, but my hands stayed steady due to the thousands of hours of operation. Another shard came out, then another. I didn't clip Sam once, and Mom's jaw dropped. I placed my tweezers on a shard of glass near Sam's neck, near the carotid artery. He nodded, and I slowly pulled it out. The most dangerous shard was gone. By the time the ambulance came, every shard was out of Sam's body and in a pile beside us. As I got the last one out, my hands started shaking uncontrollably. I'd kept them steady for just long enough, but now my body was in shock. But Sam reached out and held them until they stopped trembling. "Hey, big brother, you just played Operation, and I didn't buzz once. You won." I laughed. I walked out onto the stage in front of 300 people, sat down at the piano, and took the deepest breath of my life. I looked up at the only seat in the room that was empty. It was my grandma's. She'd sat in the 3rd row for every recital since I was 4, in the same brown coat, with the same little wave when our eyes met from the stage. Tonight she was supposed to be there too. She'd circled the date on her kitchen calendar the day they printed the program. She'd be waiting in her car at 6 in the morning, every Saturday, ready to drive me into the city for lessons. She'd hum along to whatever was on the radio, off-key, and pretend not to hear me beg her to stop. I missed practice for the first time when she didn't wake up and gave the world her last breath. The song in front of me was 6 months of pencil and erasing and starting over, the only thank you I had left to give her. I closed my eyes, and I began. I lifted my hands off the keys, and the hall didn't make a sound. Not for a long time. Somewhere in the back, a woman was crying. The host walked to the mic to call up the next girl, but she was already in the front row shaking her head. She knew there was nothing left to play. I walked down off the stage. I walked past the rows of people who'd never met her, and I sat down in her seat. I dragged my sleeve across my face. The 3rd row was full now. "I hope you heard it, Grandma." I walked out